So, how do we treat these conditions? This is the issue. Fungi are eukaryotes, just like us. So that may cause some toxicity issues. Just as we did with antibiotics, you will need to memorize all the formulas that are on this page. You need to memorize 4 classes of antifungal drugs. The first class is polyenes, named so for many double bonds in their structure. Here under the A you can see amphotericin B. Another member is nystatin, but the class is polyenes, okay? So the problem with polyenes, they have pretty significant side effects. Amphotericin B, I saw what it does to cells in vitro. Holy shit. Then we have griseofulvin. This compound inhibits, so mechanistically, polyenes, membrane disruption. Griseofulvin inhibits the synthesis of microtubules. Flucytosine inhibits the synthesis of DNA and RNA. They can be used for various mycoses, but the most effective antifungal drugs that we have now are azole drugs that inhibit the synthesis of a molecule called ergosterol, which is a key component of the fungal cell membrane. Another advantage of azole drugs that we have is that often for treatment you need to take like 1 pill and that's it, because its pharmacokinetics is such that they stay in the blood at the very high levels for an extended period of time. Okay? So, probably the most common mucosal diseases, not mucosal, mycotic diseases caused by fungi, are cutaneous. And cutaneous obviously means, skin, but they can crawl onto the mucosal layers sometimes as well. Let's start with these 3, so Trichophyton, epidermophyton, microspore. These guys cause ringworm, which is not a ring and not a worm. Okay? Different manifestations aren't necessarily caused by different species. So the same species can cause the ringworm on the body, tinea corporis, this, feet, tinea pedis, athlete's foot, the bearded region, tinea barbae, okay? Make sense? Now, Aspergillus can also cause, Aspergillus is black mold, can cause skin infections too. You can see the cutaneous aspergillosis here. But usually this is a secondary infection, meaning that there is an Aspergillus infection someplace else. And then there's a classic, Candida albicans, which can cause skin infections and nail infections. Okay? Does that make sense? So I can bet, and you don't have to tell me anything. You may know someone, or you may be that someone who had these kinds of infections, like a ringworm or athlete's foot, or thrush, or fungal vaginosis, candidiasis. Okay, what I want you to notice is that all these infections happen on the skin or the mucosa that is very much exposed to the environment. Now, the infections, systemic infections with different fungi, are relatively rare and affect people who are immunocompromised. So what can explain such a difference? Why fungi can fairly easily cause the disease on the skin, let's say skin, but have troubles establishing themselves inside otherwise healthy person? First of all, we don't know. And when I say we don't know, I say we don't know from the scientific standpoint, meaning that we don't have good experimental data that unequivocally would support what I'm about to tell you. But all circumstantial evidence suggests fungi don't really like hot. They like ambient. The skin is ambient. If a fungus gets into a healthy person, its growth will be actually delayed because it's way too hot, and it will have to deal with the might of the immune system. If the immune system is suppressed, why not? You know? So, another commonality among all pathogenic fungi that cause systemic disease is that they enter through the respiratory route. You have to inhale them. We already encountered that with Histoplasma capsulatum, but here are a couple more examples. First, Cryptococcus neoformans. Its cells have a capsule, which makes it not a great target for macrophages. It's a yeast that causes meningitis, especially in the patients with AIDS. How is it transmitted? Well, it's a zoonotic infection. The fungus is found in the droppings of birds and is transmitted when those droppings are aerosolized. Similar is true for Coccidioides immitis. Now, this one, also known as valley fever, is characteristic for southwestern United States, as you can see here. Extremely infectious. It is biosafety level 3 agent, and it even classified as a select agent. Select agent classification is assigned to a pathogen collaboratively by CDC, FBI, and United States Department of Agriculture, and it means that it can be used potentially for bioterrorism. Okay? Since it's respiratory transmitted and it's easily aerosolized. Okay? Treatable. So the respiratory, the lung infection happens first, but later the cutaneous manifestations can develop. Now these two are microorganisms that cause meningitis. Okay? Both Cryptococcus and Coccidioides. Now these three guys cause pneumonia. First, this one you may encounter. Pneumocystis jiroveci. It used to be Pneumocystis carini and had a wonderful acronym, PCP. Pneumocystis carini pneumonia. Okay? Remember, affects immunocompromised folks. AIDS patients, actually the most common infection. Now, typical symptoms, shortness of breath, chest tightness, non-productive cough. If you encounter a patient who doesn't just have HIV as AIDS, okay, they will probably have it. Okay. Aspergillus. That's the fungus that you will find on the moldy bread or strawberries, like that fuzzy stuff, Turns out, if you inhale enough of that fuzzy stuff, the dose should be enormous, like seriously enormous. They can start grow in your lungs in the form of so-called hyphal wall. So imagine that mycelium, that fuzzy stuff, just in your alveoli, filling them up. And then they can break out and travel through the blood and cause cutaneous symptoms, but in this case they're coming from the inside, not outside. Okay? Now in some tropical countries, mostly tropical countries, you can encounter Blastomyces, so Blastomyces dermatitidis, okay? It starts with the cutaneous symptoms, which look pretty bad, okay? But can also be, cause respiratory infection. Okay? Sounds good?